Hello, this is my first attempt at making a weekly video. It's so hard to gather growth group leaders together to be able to provide training that I'm going to try this weekly 2 to 3 minute video that I'll send out every week with the growth group questions. The purpose of this is just to help us to think along the lines of how we can make our growth groups better. Growth groups are one of the most important things that we can do as a church. They're oftentimes the best avenue for people to really grow in their faith. That's why we call them growth groups. In fact, when we think about the growth that we've experienced in our own lives, oftentimes it is in relationship with other people. Think about it. Sometimes we think that growth will really come when we hear a great sermon or when we have a wonderful worship experience. And that is true. God uses those type of things. Sometimes God uses even more miraculous things. Things like this week you'll look at Saul's conversion. Things like a vision or a dream. Or even just an overwhelming sense of God's presence when we are in nature. But has it not oftentimes been the case that in your own life, when you've experienced the most significant change, it involves a relationship with one another? It involves a relationship with someone that has walked with you when you've gone through the most difficult time in your life? Or maybe it was the example that someone set of just a great Christ-like example that you thought, I want to be more like that person. Or maybe it was the kind boldness that someone had to be able to confront you in an area of sin in your life. Most of the time, spiritual growth happens in relationship with one another. And that's really the emphasis behind growth groups. That we are entering into the lives of one another in a significant way. In such a way that we are able to come alongside of people in their difficulties and that we are able to rejoice with them as they have personal victories and celebrations. And so this week's training, I want to give us the permission to think about how we can, in the course of our growth groups, focus in on one person and what God may be doing in his or her life. Now, just as a disclaimer, this is not to say that we focus in on one person every time we meet together. And it is definitely not saying that we give all of our attention to that same individual every time we meet together. But once in a while, God is doing such a work in someone's heart that it is okay to lay aside our agenda, to put aside our study that we have done ahead of time and to say, God is working in this person's life right now, and we're going to give attention to that individual. And this is hopefully the Holy Spirit's leading as you lead, to be sensitive to ask a follow-up question or to probe a little bit deeper. Sometimes when someone begins to share and you sense the Spirit's leading to hone in on that one individual, it might simply be to listen to that person and then to summarize back to them what they have said, and all of a sudden they feel like they have been understood and it causes them to want to open up more. So here are a couple things that I would advise for you as a leader when you are leading a group and you sense the Spirit is working in someone's life individually. First of all, don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions. Not everybody is ready for a follow-up question, but as the group grows in camaraderie and friendship and vulnerability, don't be afraid to ask a follow-up question about something that was said. How does that make you feel? Or what do you think God is calling you to do next? Another thing that I've already mentioned is to be able to summarize what they have said and give them permission to expound upon that even more. And then the third thing I would emphasize is prayer. both for your group to come alongside of someone and to pray for them. But then I also want to emphasize, as a leader, to be in a spirit of prayer, quietly, silently, within your own heart as you are leading. God, give me wisdom. What are you impressing upon this person right now? And ask that God would lead you along those lines. In fact, it brings to mind a verse, and this is Jesus' words to his disciples as he is sending them out to ministry. He gives them some basic instructions. And this is related to if they are arrested and are experiencing persecution. That's a different context than this, but the principle still applies. Matthew 10:19 says, "When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you." That's our hope and prayer that happens in you and through you as you lead. And that is hopefully a word of confidence to rely on the Spirit, that the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of our Father that lives in you, will give you the words to say. And so be praying ahead of time and during, God, help me to know what to say and how to say it. To come alongside of someone in this type of area is not only when they're going through a difficult time, but it's also when they go through a celebration or a victory in their life. That is also an opportunity to focus in on one person, to celebrate what God is doing in them, and to celebrate what the Spirit has done and is doing in that person's life. So in light of that, have a blessed week. May God bless your growth group this week. Thank you.